Hey, Jason, it's great to have you here. Thank you for joining us today. I know we have a long history together, Oracle and YRC. I know you've been on the project for a while. If we could start, can you give us a little bit of background on your role at YRC and then a little bit around what you guys do?
Yeah, sure. So happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Chris. So YRC is one of the largest less than truckload carriers in the US, which means we have shipments from multiple different customers on each trailer that we have. And currently at YRC, I've been here since about 2014, and I am the CIO, which means I have technology responsibility for the holding company and then all of our subsidiaries or all of our operating companies.
That's great. One of the things that I always remember is my boss said on Steve Miranda, who runs all applications, ERP
Sure.
and HCM, and I would come in on the HR portion when you were going live, and it was great. Just being able to work with you and you understanding both sides of the process was something I
Sure.
enjoyed over the time. But let's talk a little bit about your journey to the cloud and kind of what that's been like, and what systems have you moved there, and kind of where you're at today.
Yeah, sure. So our journey to the cloud started in late 2015. So when I started in 2014, like a lot of people, we had, I'll call it an aged PeopleSoft infrastructure. So we ran PeopleSoft for HR, finance, and payroll. And what we determined after some analysis was there wasn't really a good or a viable upgrade path for that, because we had made so many customizations, throughout the year. So we decided that instead of doing an upgrade, which really wasn't a possibility in the terms of a normal upgrade, that we would look at other alternatives. So we looked at several different alternatives, and we made a series of decisions before we ultimately landed on the decision to use Oracle HCM and ERP. Probably the first decision that we made was we were only going to pick one vendor. We weren't going to have one vendor for HCM and one vendor for ERP. The second decision we made was we decided that we were going to go to the cloud. So whichever vendor we picked, we were going to go to their cloud solutions. One of the next decisions we made was we really wanted a multi-tenant cloud solution. We didn't want to have a hosted solution, if you will. And then after all of that, we got down to 2 or 3 finalists, and we ultimately selected Oracle's cloud product for ERP and HCM. We started our journey in early 2016. We converted over to the ERP suite first. And then in 2017, we started our journey on HCM, rolled out core HR. We rolled out the Taleo products at the time, which were in process of upgrading to the Oracle Recruiting Cloud and Oracle Learning Cloud. We went through, and then that culminated at the end of the year with the upgrade or the migration over to the payroll portions of HCM, which allowed us to have all of our paychecks for a given year in one system. We didn't have to carry balances forward. And then it really, I'd say, phase 1 of the project ended with the compensation module being rolled out, which we did slightly after we got payroll converted. And that's where we're at, today.
I believe over time you've made either a few acquisitions or you've rolled in additional companies. Just briefly, how has that worked? So I know you set up the platform ERP, you did HCM, you rolled out payroll, and then you've started to roll a few in. How has that worked for you?
Yeah, so we did. So we actually have 4 operating subsidiaries or operating companies. When we went live, initially we went live with the largest of those, and then our corporate parent. So the YRC Worldwide, and then the largest operating company. And then in 2019, we brought over 2 of the other companies into the HCM tool set up through and including payroll. And then just last year, Chris, as you know, just a few weeks ago, we culminated with the 4th and final company that we had. We brought into HCM and payroll as well. And then in the process of this journey, we actually launched a new subsidiary, but we brought them into the Oracle suite straight away, so there didn't have to be any conversion from their from a legacy on-prem product, which is what we had to do with our 4 LTL companies.
That's great. And you talked about a little bit about moving to the Learning Cloud, and you're on Taleo, moving to Oracle Recruiting Cloud. And I think we talked a little bit about the digital assistant last time. So can you just kind of talk about kind of what's next? I mean, are those the primary things, and what are you hoping to gain, or what are you using today in those areas? I know Taleo, but look for learning.
Yeah, so one of the decisions we made is when we were first doing the analysis of PeopleSoft and was there an upgrade, when we decided that there wasn't really an upgrade path that we liked, just because, as I said, the numbers of customizations, the cost, the time that it was going to take. When we started to identify options or vendors that we could use, partners that we could pick, we decided if we were going to go with Oracle, we were going to go with the mainline product, which at the time, was EBS. And then we later made the decision to go to the cloud versions, of those solutions. So what's next for us is a good question. So we still have one company that we need to move over onto the ERP solution. And then if you look at it, then it's really, I would say, an expansion of ERP might be one of the things that's next. So, we've talked about it as, a replacement for our legacy accounts receivable. For us, the rating, the invoicing solutions, we've talked about it going there. We've talked about, in the area of, we run Hyperion on-prem today to do our consolidations. We've looked at it as a potential replacement for Hyperion. And the thing that we've got going right now is, we're going to move to, Oracle Recruiting Cloud and Oracle Learning Cloud, as I mentioned earlier. And one of the things we like about that is, just like HCM and its components and ERP and its components, the upgrades have been very, very easy for us. So we do the quarterly upgrades. We have a lot of control about when we do those. They happen once a year. One of the reasons we picked the cloud was we called it currency. We just didn't ever want to wake up and be, n number of generations behind. And with the quarterly updates, which have been terrific for us in terms of, staying current, in terms of managing the workload that it takes to do that, in terms of being able to utilize your automated testing and things like that. So I would say it would be an expansion, inside of the ERP footprint. We've got a bigger component of the HCM footprint deployed today. So those are some of the things that we are, that we're looking at.
And we talked a little bit about some of the benefits, being able to roll in new operating units and stay current and some of those things. But when we think about HCM and ERP together, and that's kind of
Sure.
what we've seen more and more organization move to, and in fact that simplicity of having one platform, and we've talked about this in the past. But for you, kind of what has been some of the benefits? What do you see as some of the positive if you were talking to someone else in your position, another company looking to make a decision? Just kind of in your words, why do you think we say that's the right route?
Yeah, I mean, and if I was talking to somebody in my position that was a technology leader, I mean, when we looked at our on-prem solutions, as I mentioned before, they were PeopleSoft, but they were PeopleSoft with a lot of other point solutions that did certain things, either certain things that I guess at one point in time the company deduced, PeopleSoft didn't have the right answer, or it was something maybe at the time that PeopleSoft didn't do. And if you looked at just the number of people that we had supporting our, HR, finance, payroll complex, if you will, and the amount of time that was spent interfacing, getting data from one system to another system, and how much of that time it took from your developers when they could have been spending that time, customizing those environments with configurations, hopefully not changing too much of the delivered code. We spent a lot of time on that interfacing. So when we go back to the start, when we looked at, why we made the decision, one of the things that we liked about the Oracle, model is that the integration was really done, at the database level. So for example, we run payroll, that payroll gets done, it gets completed, and it updates the subledger for us. We don't have to write that interface, to update the subledger. So, we've seen the advantages, of that. The other thing that it's helped us do is, we had, like anybody that grew via acquisition, there were some differences between how, the companies operated. Some of those were nuanced, some of them were more structural. It's allowed us to kind of consolidate and say, hey, here's the one best way, going forward, and helping to align that behind the technology versus us always trying to just, program what our legacy process was. The last one, and Parsons and my team will be really, really happy when we get the final conversions done. There's no longer going to be that last 2 weeks of December when many people have aspirations to take time off and to celebrate with family. There's not going to be the every year upgrade or the every year new launch of something that requires all of those people to work, the last 2 weeks of the year. And then I think, one of the things not to be, underestimated, the benefits for the people that sit in my chair is if you look at, information security and some of those areas, there's lots of threats out there today, threats that need to be taken seriously, but, people that aren't current and people that haven't patched are oftentimes, more susceptible. So with our quarterly updates, and if there's a needed patch in between them, we really feel like, we have a better security posture, more currency and some of those things. So I think for those reasons and other benefits, we're very happy with where we're at.
That's great. And I think I told you this personally. We took a trip up to Oregon, and we drove. We didn't want to fly. Yeah. And the great thing about working with YRC is you see your trucks all over the road. And probably the sixth time we saw one of your trucks, we were passing them. But we passed one of your trucks. My wife goes, "I got it. They're a customer. I know. Yeah, I've heard it." So
yeah, we appreciate that. I can send you a model of one of those trucks for your office if you would like.
I would love it. That would be great. Jason, this has been great. You've been a great partner. We love hearing from you and obviously talking to you and getting feedback on how we can always do better. That's one of the things that you're always too kind, but always giving us ideas and things for us to think about. And we appreciate that and appreciate the partnership. And thank you for taking the time and telling us a little bit about your journey to the cloud.
All right, perfect. Happy to be here. Thanks, Chris.
All right.